the anniversary of my dad's death is in about a week. And this is a 2-year anniversary, so not that long of a time. And I still get emotional around this time. So let me give you guys a little backstory to mine and my dad's relationship prior to his passing. My dad was an alcoholic. Ultimately, that's what he passed away from. So for as long as I can remember, he drank, but he didn't start getting mean until about maybe 5 to 6 years before his passing, and he was verbally abusive. And I came to a point where I had to cut him out of my life because I was not gonna allow anybody, no matter if you're family or not, to abuse me. And also I didn't want to expose my son to that, or for my dad to start verbally abusing him down the line. So for the last, I think, 2 to 3 years of my dad's life, we were not in any contact. So about a week before my dad passed, we got a phone call from the hospital saying that he was in the hospital and that he was very sick. So I went to go see him, of course, and I had major anxiety because I didn't know if I would walk in and he'd see me and, you know, be mad at me for essentially blocking him for the past 2 to 3 years. But I walked in, saw him. He did not look like the same man a few years prior. It was very shocking to me, the way that he looked. If I would have to pass him in a store or on the street, I wouldn't have even known that was my dad. So because of the state that my dad was in, he was being very aggressive with the hospital staff, and they actually had to restrain him. So walking into the hospital room after not seeing him for so many years, seeing how he looked, seeing him restrained to a bed, it was a lot to process. About a day or two after I saw him, I ended up being essentially his, what do you call it, power of attorney. Like, I was his next of kin, so I was in charge of making all his medical decisions, which, you know, that's a lot of pressure. So the doctors tell me that all of my dad's organs are starting to shut down, and that there's nothing more that they could do, and that I have to make a decision and sign the papers saying to, you know, essentially to let him die, honestly. So it sucked, honestly, having to make that decision. So my dad was in and out of it. You know, he was not always there. He was not always lucid. There were a few times where he was lucid, and I just remember him asking once, he asked, So what's wrong with me anyways? And having to explain to him essentially that you're dying, that all your organs are shutting down, and there's nothing else that can be done. And he just absorbed the information and just stayed quiet. After that day, he was lucid almost that whole day. I was able to feed him. I was able to go get him ice cream and cookies. My dad had a major sweet tooth. And I'm just thankful that I got to spend his last few days taking care of him. Being able to feed him his last meal, give him water. Once he was transferred to hospice, he lasted like maybe 2 days before he passed. And I stood with him his last night. I slept at the hospice. He was, totally unresponsive at that point. No longer waking up. His breathing was getting more and more shallow. So that night I remember if I would doze off, I would wake up and listen for his breathing, that he was still breathing. But that night, I just remember I knew he was gonna go soon. So that last night, I sat next to his bed and just had a good cry with him. I just let out all my emotions. I just let out everything that I wanted to say to him. So I knew he was gonna go soon. So the next morning, I left to go home to get some rest. And at about 2 o'clock, my sister called me saying that my dad had passed. I actually wasn't sad or hurt that I wasn't there, because that night I had said everything I wanted to say, got everything out. So this week has been rough because I am reliving that last week, just reliving everything, and just, processing still. Grieving never ends. It never does. Like, yeah, it'll hurt a little less as time goes on, but especially around anniversaries, it's normal to feel the pain again really strong. So that's why I'm doing this hike. I'm doing it in remembrance of him. So this hike that I'm doing is in the Manzano open space area in the foothills of Albuquerque. And I tripped. My goal is to get somewhere right there. I wanted a little bit of a challenge, but I didn't want a crazy challenge because the hikes to both of these are incredibly steep. And I didn't bring any snacks with me or anything. I just brought my water. But I want to go find me a nice rock to sit on up there and do my writing and cry. So, why am I sharing this? Because I'm just being authentic. This is me. This is who I am. I'm not just going to share the good times that I have. I want to share everything. Struggles, the sadness, everything in between, because that's life. It's real. People go through shit, and it's okay. I'm getting higher. It's starting to get really steep. Can't really tell, of course, but it's steep, and I'm having to stop every like 10 steps or something. But I'm almost to my goal. Almost to where I want to sit. Okay, I made it to my stopping point. I went, I don't know, like a mile and like 200 or 300 feet up. So again, it wasn't horrible, but it was a little bit of a challenge. Got a great view. There's Albuquerque down there. It's a little bit windy, but not bad. Heading back down. Stood about 20 minutes up there, and then this wind's just picking up and it's cold, so I gotta start moving again. But thank you if you've listened to me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys again for watching and listening to me. And now, after all those sad emotions, I'm gonna go meet my friend for some lunch. And yes, I am jogging a little bit because I didn't realize the time it